The observation deck of the Galactic Military Academy floated above the silver clouds of Vareth 7. Admiral Vex stood near the window, his compound eyes reflecting the stars. His mandibles clicked together slowly as he read the report on his datapad. Behind him, General Cora floated in her containment sphere, her gelatinous body pulsing with soft blue light. "Humans," Admiral Vex said the word like it was a disease. "They are sending us humans." General Cora's body flickered with yellow light, which meant she was amused. "The Council approved their entry into the Academy. We cannot refuse them." "I have read their file," the Admiral replied. "They come from a Class 12 death world. Their planet has extreme gravity, radiation from their star, thousands of diseases, and predators in every environment. They should not exist, and yet they do." Admiral Dex turned away from the window. His tall insectoid body cast a long shadow across the floor. "They have no natural armor, no venom, no ability to regenerate limbs. They cannot even see in the dark properly. How did they become the dominant species on their planet?" General Cora had no answer. She had designed the hardest survival courses in the galaxy. She had broken cadets from 100 different species, but she had never trained a human before. Nobody had. The door slid open, and Observer Plix walked in on his 6 thin legs. He was a small creature, barely reaching the Admiral's knee. His job was to watch and record everything. "The Council wanted detailed reports on the human cadets." "They have arrived," Plix announced. Their shuttle just docked. The 3 officers made their way to the arrival bay. Dozens of alien cadets had already gathered there, curious to see the newcomers from the legendary death world called Earth. There were tall Kreth warriors made of living stone. There were Malari swimmers floating in portable water tanks. There were Dendari scouts with their 6 limbs and excellent night vision, and then the airlock opened. 5 humans walked out. They were smaller than expected. They had soft skin, flat faces, and forward-facing eyes. They wore simple gray uniforms. They carried no visible weapons. The alien cadets began to laugh. "These are the Deathworlders." A Kreth warrior mocked. "They look like food." The humans did not react. They simply stood in formation, waiting. Their leader was a young male named Han Doyan. He had calm eyes and a straight posture. Beside him stood Park Yuna, a female with sharp features and an intense stare. Behind them were Kim Tai-woo, a quiet male who kept looking at everything with curiosity. Li Juan, a female with gentle eyes, and Choi Mira, the youngest, who moved with the silence of a hunter. Admiral Vex approached them. He towered over the humans, his mandibles clicking loudly. It was meant to intimidate them. Han Doyan simply looked up at him and said, "Reporting for training, Admiral." There was no fear in his voice, not even a little. Admiral Vex did not know what to do with that. Every other species showed some reaction to him. Fear, respect, submission. But the human just looked at him like he was furniture. "You will be tested," the Admiral said. "The Academy does not accept weakness. You understand?" Han Doyan replied. General Cora floated forward. Her body pulsed with orange light, a sign of deep thought. She had an idea. A terrible idea? "Admiral," she said, "I believe we should assign them to the Extinction Protocol." The room went silent. Even the mocking Kreth warriors stopped laughing. The Extinction Protocol was the hardest survival course in the galaxy. It took place on Drathix, a quarantine jungle moon filled with monsters and death. The course was designed to take 1 full galactic year to complete. The fastest time ever recorded was 847 days, achieved by a squad of 8 Kreth warriors. Only 3 of them survived. Admiral Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "That course has a 60% death rate." "The humans claim to be survivors," General Cora replied. "Let them prove it." Observer Plix felt a chill run through his small body. He looked at the humans, expecting to see fear. Instead, he saw something else. Park Yuna was smiling. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for a challenge. Han Do-yen turned to his squad. They exchanged looks. No words were needed. They had trained together, lived together, and nearly died together many times on Earth. This was just another day. We accept, Han Do-yoon said. Admiral Vex was surprised. You do not wish to know more about the course? Will knowing more change the mission? No, then we accept. The alien cadets whispered among themselves. This was either incredible bravery or incredible stupidity. Most believed it was stupidity. General Korra assigned them a departure time. The drop pod would launch in 6 hours. The humans would be given basic survival kits and nothing else. No advanced weapons, no communication devices, no rescue beacons. They would have to travel 4,000 kilometers across the deadliest terrain in the known galaxy and reach the extraction point. The humans were escorted to their temporary quarters. As they walked, Choi Mira fell into step beside Han Do-jun. The big insect wants us to die, she said quietly. Probably Han Do-yan agreed. Are we actually going to do this? Han Do-yan looked at her. There was something in his eyes that Choi Mira had seen before. Back on Earth, during the mountain training that nearly killed them all, it was not confidence. It was something deeper. It was certainty. We grew up on Earth, he said. We learned to walk in gravity that crushes other species. We breathed air that would poison half the galaxy. We ate food that would be considered toxic waste on other planets. We survived diseases that killed billions of our own kind. He stopped walking and faced his squad. This moon they are sending us to? It is just another Tuesday. Park Yuna cracked her knuckles. Kim Tai-woo checked his watch. Lee Guan organized her medical supplies. Choi Mira stretched her legs. 6 hours later. When the drop pod launched toward the jungle moon of Drathix, Observer Plix watched from the observation deck. He recorded everything in his report. But there was one detail he could not explain with words, as the pod disappeared into the darkness of space. He saw the humans through the small window. They were not praying. They were not crying. They were not even talking. They were sleeping. They were about to enter hell. They had decided to take a nap first. Plix added a single note to his report. I do not understand these creatures. I am not sure I want to. The drop pod hit the surface of Drathix like a meteor. The impact shook the entire jungle. Trees fell. Birds screamed. Somewhere in the distance, something very large woke up from its sleep and began moving toward the crash site. Inside the pod, the 5 humans unstrapped themselves from their seats. Red emergency lights filled the small space. The air system hissed as it adjusted to the planet's atmosphere. Everyone okay? Han Do-yan asked. Fine, Park Yuna answered, already checking her gear. Hey, my shoulder hurts a little, Choi Mira said, but I can move. Kim Tai-woo was already at the control panel reading the data. Atmosphere is breathable, but heavy. Gravity is 0.9 Earth standard. Temperature outside is 34 degrees. Humidity is 89%. Lee Gi-won opened her medical kit and did a quick check of everyone. No serious injuries. A few bruises from the landing. Nothing that would slow them down. The pod's computer spoke in a calm, artificial voice. Welcome to the Extinction Protocol. Your objective is to reach the extraction beacon located 4,000 kilometers northeast of your current position. You have been provided with basic survival equipment. No external help will be given. Good luck, cadets. You will need it. The computer went silent. Han Do-yan looked at his team. We move in 5 minutes. Take only what you can carry easily. We are not camping. We are marching. Back at the academy, Observer Plix had taken his place in the observation room. Large screens showed live footage from cameras hidden across the moon. Admiral Vex stood beside him, his compound eyes fixed on the screen showing the human pod. How long until the first attack? The Admiral asked. The Drathstalkers usually find new arrivals within the first hour, General Korra answered. She floated in the corner, her body pulsing with interested light. On the screen, the humans emerged from their pod. They moved quickly and efficiently. Park Yuna took point, scanning the tree line. Choi Mira climbed a nearby rock to get a better view. Kim Tai-woo began taking apart pieces of the pod that might be useful. Lee Guan collected water samples from a nearby stream. Han Do-yan stood in the center, coordinating everything. They are organized, Plix noted. More organized than most squads. Admiral Vex made a dismissive sound with his mandibles. Organization will not save them from what lives on this moon. As if the universe wanted to prove him right, the attack came. The Drathstalker burst from the jungle without warning. It was massive, nearly 4 meters tall, with 6 powerful legs and a mouth full of teeth that could bite through metal. Its roar shook the ground. On the screen, Admiral Vex leaned forward. This was the moment. This was when the humans would die or run. They did neither. Park. Una grabbed a metal rod from the pod debris and charged directly at the monster. Her speed was incredible. The stalker swiped at her with its claws, but she ducked under the blow and drove the rod into its front leg. The creature screamed in pain and stumbled. Choi. Mira appeared behind it, moving so silently that even the cameras almost missed her. She had a rope made from emergency cables. She threw it around the stalker's back legs and pulled. Kim Tai-woo had rigged something from the pod's power cells. When the stalker fell, he pressed it against the creature's body. Electricity surged through the monster. It convulsed violently. Han Do-yeon moved in with a sharp piece of whole metal. He found the soft spot under the creature's jaw and pushed the blade in deep. Li Guan was right beside him, guiding his hand based on the creature's anatomy. 4 minutes and 37 seconds after the attack began, the Drathstalker was dead. The observation room was completely silent. Admiral Vex's mandibles hung open. General Korra's body had turned a color that Plix had never seen before. It might have been shock. That is not possible, the Admiral whispered. On the screen, the humans were already working. Park Yuna was cutting meat from the creature's body. Choi Mira was skinning it, taking the tough hide. Kim Tai-woo was examining the bones, looking for useful pieces. Li Guan was collecting samples of its blood and organs. What are they doing? General Korra asked. They're harvesting it, Plix answered. His voice was small. They killed it, and now they are using it. Han Do-yeon called his team together. They ate quickly, filling their stomachs with cooked meat. They wrapped extra food in leaves. They fashioned simple bags from the stalker's hide. They made knives from its bones. Then they started walking. They did not make camp. They did not rest. They just started moving toward the beacon, 4,000 kilometers away. They should rest, Admiral Dex said. They just fought a Drathstalker. Any other species would need ours to recover. But the humans did not stop. They moved at a steady pace, not running, but not walking either. It was something in between. A jog, a rhythm that they could maintain for hours. Plix pulled up information on his datapad. He began reading about human biology. What he found made his 6 legs tremble. Admiral, he said quietly, I think I understand what they are doing. Explain. Humans are persistence predators. On their planet, they did not hunt by being faster or stronger than their prey. They hunted by never stopping. They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. The humans would still be standing. Still moving? Admiral Vex processed this information. You are saying they can just keep going? Their bodies are designed for it. They cool themselves by releasing water through their skin. They call it sweating. It lets them run in heat that would kill other predators. They can travel huge distances without rest. On the screen, the humans had already covered 10 kilometers. The sun was beginning to set on Drathix, but they showed no signs of stopping. Park Yuna moved to the front, her eyes scanning the darkening jungle. Choi Mira dropped to the back, watching for threats from behind. The others stayed in the middle, conserving energy. They rotated positions every hour. When Kim Tai-woo began to slow from fatigue, Han Do-yeon simply picked him up and carried him on his back. Kim Tai-woo slept while being carried. An hour later, he woke up and they switched. Now Kim Tai-woo carried Han Do-yeon. They take turns sleeping, Plix said, his voice filled with something close to fear. They never stop moving, but they take turns sleeping. The squad never rests, but the individuals do. Admiral Dex said nothing. He just watched. By the end of the first 12 hours, the humans had covered 200 kilometers. They had killed 3 more predators, eaten 2 of them, and scared off a pack of night hunters by building something called fire. When the flames appeared on screen, General Cora made a sound of genuine terror. Fire was rare in the galaxy. Most species feared it deeply, but the humans sat around it, warming their hands, cooking their food, and laughing at jokes that the translation software could not properly convert. They were in hell, and they were laughing. Plix added another note to his report. The humans do not seem to understand that they should be afraid. Or perhaps they do understand and they simply do not care. He looked at the Admiral's frozen expression. I am beginning to think, Plix continued, that fear is something humans use as fuel. Word had spread through the Academy like fire through dry grass. By hour 15, the observation room was filled with officers, instructors, and cadets from every species. They stood in silence, watching the screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. The humans had not stopped. Admiral Dex had checked the data 17 times. He had asked 3 different technicians to verify the tracking signals. The results were always the same. In 15 hours, the human squad had covered 580 kilometers. They had crossed terrain that other species took weeks to pass. This is wrong, a Kreth general muttered. His name was Stonebreaker, and he was one of the 3 survivors of the fastest extinction protocol completion on record. It had taken his squad 847 days. They should be dead by now. The swamp alone should have killed them. On the screen, the humans were wading through the acid swamp. The water was filled with parasites that secreted burning liquid. It had stopped other squads for weeks as they searched for safe crossing points. Kim Tai-woo had solved the problem in 40 minutes. He had remembered the Drath, stalker hide. The creature lived in these swamps, so its skin must resist the acid. He was right. The humans wrapped themselves in the hide, built a simple raft from fallen trees, and pushed across the poisonous water. How did he know that? General Cora asked. Her body was pulsing with colors that had no name, observed. Plix answered. He saw the stalker, understood its environment, and made a connection. Humans call it problem solving. All species solve problems. Not like this. Not this fast. On the screen, the humans reached the other side of the swamp. They did not celebrate. They did not rest. Park Yuna simply checked her weapon. Choi Myra scouted ahead. They kept moving. Li Juan was treating burns on Han Do-yan's arm. Some acid had gotten through the hide. The wound was serious, the skin red and blistered. But Han Do-yan did not slow down. He let Li Juan wrap the wound while walking, and then he picked up the pace again. Does he not feel pain? Admiral Dex asked. Feels it, Plix said. He is simply ignoring it. The next obstacle was the volcanic region. The ground was hot enough to melt metal in some places. Rivers of lava cut across the landscape. The air was thick with smoke and ash. Most species could not survive here for more than a few hours. Their bodies would overheat. They would die. The humans entered the volcanic region and began to sweat. Plix had read about this, but seeing it was different. Water appeared on the human skin, covering them in a thin, shiny layer. As the water evaporated, it carried heat away from their bodies. They were cooling themselves from the inside out. That is disgusting, a Malari officer said, her body flickering with green light. That is survival, Plix corrected. The humans moved through the lava fields in 6 hours. They jumped over streams of molten rock. They climbed over cooling volcanic stones. When Park Yuna's boot caught fire, she simply kicked it off, wrapped her foot in stalker hide, and kept moving. At hour 18, they stopped for the first time. The observation room went tense. Something was wrong. The humans never stopped. On the screen, the squad had gathered in a small cave at the edge of the volcanic region. They were eating the last of their stalker meat. They were checking their wounds, and they were talking. The translation software picked up their conversation. Mountain range ahead, Choi Myra reported. I could see it from the ridge. The peaks go up into the toxic layer. How toxic? Han Do-yan asked. Bad. The air up there will kill us in minutes. Kim Tai-woo was thinking. His eyes had that distant look that meant his brain was working faster than his mouth could follow. "The stalker," he said suddenly. "Its lungs. They filter toxins. If we could make masks from the lung tissue we saved..." Li Juan opened her pack. She had kept samples of everything from the stalker, including its respiratory organs. "I have enough material for 5 masks. Maybe." "Then we go over the mountain," Hondoyan decided. Park Yuna grinned. "I was hoping you would say that." In the observation room, Stonebreaker, the Kreth general, made a sound like rocks grinding together. "They cannot be serious. No one has ever climbed over those mountains. Every squad goes around. It adds months to the journey, but the alternative is death." "Perhaps someone should tell them that," Admiral Deck said. Nobody volunteered. On the screen, the humans finished their meal, checked their improvised breathing masks, and began climbing. The mountain was brutal. The rocks were sharp and loose. The temperature dropped rapidly as they gained altitude. Wind tore at their clothing and tried to throw them off the cliff faces. They climbed anyway. Choi Mira took the lead. She had grown up in the mountains of Korea, and her body remembered how to move on stone. She found paths that the cameras could barely see. She drove metal spikes into the rock and tied ropes for the others to follow. When the oxygen started to thin, the humans breathed harder but did not slow down. Their bodies were adapting in real time, pulling more air into their lungs, pumping more blood to their muscles. "They are breaking," General Cora observed. "Look at their movements. They are exhausted." She was right. The humans were stumbling more often now. Their coordination was suffering. Kim Tai-woo fell twice and had to be pulled up by Han Do-yeon. Li Guan was coughing from the thin air. Even Park Yuna, the strongest of them, was moving slower, but they did not stop. At hour 20, they reached the toxic zone. The air turned yellow and thick. The humans put on their masks made from stalker lungs, and they kept climbing. Plix could see them suffering. The masks were imperfect. Some toxin was getting through. Their eyes were watering. Their skin was turning red. Every breath was a battle. Choi Mira slipped on an icy ledge. She fell backward, her hands grabbing at empty air. For one terrible second, she was going to fall thousands of meters to her death. Kim Tai-woo caught her wrist. He was hanging from the rock with one hand, holding her with the other. His muscles were screaming. His joints were popping. But he did not let go. Han Do-yeon reached down and grabbed Choi Mira's other arm. Together, they pulled her back onto the ledge. She lay there for 5 seconds, breathing hard. Then she stood up and kept climbing. "What is wrong with them?" Stonebreaker asked. His voice was no longer mocking. It was afraid. "Nothing is wrong with them," Plix answered quietly. "This is what they are. This is what Earth made them." At hour 22, the humans reached the summit. They stood at the top of the mountain, looking down at the valley below. The extraction beacon was visible now. A tiny point of light 400 kilometers away. They had done the impossible. They had crossed the mountain in hours instead of months. Han Do-yeon looked at his team. They were broken. Choi Mira's shoulder was dislocated again. Kim Tai-woo had 3 broken fingers. Park Yuna was limping badly. Li Guan had a deep cut on her forehead that was still bleeding. "Downhill from here," Han Do-yeon said. Park Yuna laughed. It was a broken, painful sound, but it was still a laugh. "Race you to the bottom." They started descending. In the observation room, no one spoke. No one moved. They just watched the 5 broken humans slide and stumble and fall down the mountain. Getting closer to the beacon with every agonizing step, Admiral Vex finally broke the silence. "What have we done? What have we led into the Confederacy?" Nobody had an answer. The descent was worse than the climb. Going up, gravity was the enemy. Going down, gravity was a betrayer. It pulled at tired legs and clouded minds. It whispered that falling would be easier than walking. It tried to kill them with their own weight. The humans fell 7 times in the first hour. Each time they got back up, Li Guan was counting injuries in her head. She had stopped speaking them out loud because the list was too long. Han Do-yeon had 2 cracked ribs from a bad fall. Park Yuna's ankle was swollen to twice its normal size. Kim Tae-woo's broken fingers were turning purple. Choi Myra was running a fever from infection in her shoulder. They needed rest. They needed medical attention. They needed to stop. They kept moving. In the observation room at the academy, the crowd had grown even larger. Word had reached other stations, other ships, other worlds. Officers were watching on screens across the sector. The story was spreading like a virus. 5 humans were about to complete the extinction protocol in less than a day. Stonebreaker, the Kreth general, had not left his spot near the main screen. His rocky face showed no expression, but his hands were trembling. He had spent 847 days on that moon. He had watched 5 of his squad mates die. He had crawled the last 100 kilometers on broken legs, and these soft pink creatures were going to finish it before dinner. "I do not understand," he said to no one in particular. "I do not understand what I am seeing." Plix stood beside him, his datapad filled with notes. "I have been researching human history," the small observer said. "Would you like to know what I found?" Stonebreaker nodded slowly. Their planet tried to kill them constantly. Ice ages froze them. Volcanoes burned them. Predators hunted them. Diseases attacked them. Other humans attacked them. They should have died out 1,000,000 years ago, but they did not. No, they adapted. They invented tools to fight predators. They invented fire to survive the cold. They invented medicine to fight disease. And when nothing else worked, they invented stubbornness.
Oh, stubbornness.
They have a saying on Earth: if at first you do not succeed, try again. They believe failure is not an ending. It is just a reason to try harder. On the screen, the humans had reached the bottom of the mountain. They were in the final jungle now, the one surrounding the beacon. This was the most dangerous part. Every predator on Drathix knew about the beacon. They had learned over centuries that exhausted cadets would eventually stumble toward that glowing light. So they waited there, hiding in the trees and under the ground. Hungry and patient. No squad had ever reached the beacon without losing at least. One member to these final predators, the humans entered the jungle in a tight formation. They were no longer 5 individuals. They had become something else. A single organism with 5 bodies and 1 mind. Park Yuna took point. Despite her injured ankle, she moved with deadly grace. Her eyes never stopped scanning. Her makeshift spear never lowered. Behind her, Han Do-yeon and Kim Tae-woo walked side by side, covering each other's blind spots. Their breathing was synchronized. Their footsteps matched perfectly. Li Guan stayed in the center, the safest position. She was the medic. If she died, the others would follow. They protected her without being told. Choi Myra brought up the rear. Her fever made her vision swim, but her instincts were still sharp. She heard the first predator before anyone else. "Contact rear," she whispered. The humans did not panic. They did not scatter. They simply adjusted their formation. Turning to face the threat as a unit, the predator was a serpent. 10 meters long, with scales like black glass and fangs dripping with venom. It struck fast. Aiming for Choi Myra's throat, Park Yuna intercepted it. She threw herself into the serpent's path, catching its head in her hands. The fangs snapped centimeters from her face. The creature's body wrapped around her, squeezing the air from her lungs. She did not call for help. She did not need to. Han Do-yeon was already there, his bone knife finding the soft spot behind the serpent's skull. Kim Tae-woo grabbed its tail and pulled, preventing it from tightening further. Choi Myra, despite her fever, drove her own blade into its body again and again. The serpent died in 12 seconds. Park Yuna lay on the ground, gasping for breath. Her ribs were bruised, maybe cracked. Li Guan was beside her immediately, checking for damage. "Can you walk?" Han Do-yeon asked. Park Yuna's answer was to stand up and take her position at the front again, in the observation room. Someone was crying. A young Malari cadet had tears running down her gelatinous face. She did not know why she was crying. The humans were aliens. They were strangers. But watching them fight, watching them refuse to fall, watching them protect each other with such fierce devotion, had broken something inside her.
Admiral.
They love each other, she whispered. Admiral Dex heard her. He had been thinking the same thing. Humans were pack animals. They bonded in ways that other species found difficult to understand. They would die for each other without hesitation. They would suffer any pain to keep their group alive. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. On the screen, more predators attacked. A pack of six-legged hunters burst from the trees. A flying creature dove from above. Something huge moved in the shadows ahead. The humans killed them all. They had no advanced weapons. They had bone knives, sharpened sticks, and rocks. They had injured bodies and exhausted minds. But they had something else. Something that the predators could not match. They had 10,000 years of evolution as the deadliest predators. On a death world, Park Yuna strangled one of the six-legged hunters with her legs while stabbing another in the eye. Han Do-yan crushed a skull with a rock, his cracked ribs screaming with every movement. Kim Tai-woo used his broken fingers to gouge out eyes and tear at throats. Li Guan, the gentle medic, broke a creature's neck with clinical precision. Choi Mira, burning with fever, moved like a ghost through the chaos, killing anything that came near her squad. When it was over, when the last predator fled into the jungle, the humans stood in a circle of bodies. They were covered in blood, most of it not their own. They were breathing hard. They were shaking from exhaustion and pain. But they were alive. All five of them, Han Do-yan, looked toward the beacon. It was close now. Less than 2 kilometers away, he could see its light through the trees. Last push, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. His throat was raw from breathing toxic air. Stay together. Stay sharp. We finish this. Park Yuna nodded. Kim Tai-woo nodded. Li Guan nodded. Choi Mira nodded. They moved forward. The jungle watched them go. The remaining predators watched them go. Nothing attacked. Nothing even tried. The most dangerous creatures on Drathix had learned something that day. They had learned what humans were. They had learned what death looked like when it wore soft skin and walked on 2 legs. They had learned to be afraid. Plix wrote the final line of his observation notes for this section. His small hands trembled as he typed. The predators of Drathix have given up. They are letting the humans pass. I believe this is the first intelligent decision the local wildlife has made in recorded history. The beacon stood in a clearing, a tall metal pillar pulsing with blue light. It had been placed there 200 years ago at the end of the Extinction Protocol course. Thousands of cadets had dreamed of reaching it. Hundreds had died trying. The 5 humans walked out of the jungle at hour 23, minute 40-7. They were barely recognizable as the same cadets who had dropped onto the moon less than a day ago. Their uniforms were torn and stained with blood. Their skin was covered in cuts, burns, and bruises. Their bodies were broken in more ways than Li Guan could count, but they were walking, all 5 of them together. Han Do-yan stopped at the edge of the clearing. He looked at his squad, and they looked back at him. No words were needed. They had done the impossible, and they had done it as one. Together. He asked. Together, they answered. They walked to the beacon as a group. Their steps were slow and painful, but they matched each other perfectly. Nobody was left behind. Nobody was alone. Han Do-yan reached out and pressed his palm against the beacon's activation panel. The light changed from blue to green, and a computer voice announced across every speaker on the moon. Extinction protocol completed. Time: 23 hours, 47 minutes. Squad size 5. Survivors: 5. In the observation room at the academy, there was complete silence. Then the silence broke. Chaos erupted. Officers were shouting. Cadets were screaming. Datapads were thrown in the air. Someone fainted. Someone else was laughing hysterically, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Admiral Vex stood frozen. His mandibles had stopped clicking. His compound eyes were fixed on the screen showing the 5 humans standing beside the beacon. They were not celebrating. They were not cheering. They were simply standing, holding each other up, making sure nobody fell. General Cora's body was cycling through colors so fast that it looked white. She had designed the extinction protocol. She had meant it to be impossible. She had meant it to break the best soldiers in the galaxy. It had taken less than a day to break. But instead, Stonebreaker, the Kreth general, walked out of the observation room without a word. His 847-day record had just been destroyed by creatures who looked like food. He needed time alone to understand what that meant. Observer Plix was typing frantically on his datapad. His report would be the most important document in the history of the Galactic Confederacy. He needed to get every detail right. On the screen, an extraction shuttle was landing near the beacon. Medical teams rushed out, prepared for injuries that would horrify any doctor in the galaxy. They loaded the humans onto stretchers and carried them into the ship. 3 hours later, the shuttle docked at the Academy. The humans were taken directly to the medical bay, where the best doctors from a dozen species worked to repair their damaged bodies. The list of injuries was staggering. Between the 5 of them, they had 17 broken bones, 4 dislocated joints, 2 cracked skulls, 1 punctured lung, severe burns covering 12% of their combined body surface, 3 serious infections, multiple organ bruising, extreme dehydration, and signs of toxic exposure to their lungs, eyes, and skin. Any other species would have been dead 10 times over. The doctors worked for 6 hours. They used every tool, every medicine, every technique they knew. When they were finished, the humans were stable but unconscious, floating in healing tanks filled with regenerative fluid. Admiral Vex visited the medical bay the next morning. He walked slowly between the tanks, looking at each human in turn. They floated peacefully, their wounds slowly closing, their bodies slowly healing. They looked so small, so fragile. He stopped at Hondoyan's tank. The young man's eyes were closed, but there was a strange expression on his face. It took the Admiral a moment to recognize it. He was smiling. The Admiral stood there for a long time, thinking. He thought about the Confederacy and its 1,000-member species. He thought about the wars they had fought and the peace they had built. He thought about what would happen if that peace ever ended. He thought about what it would mean to fight creatures who refused to die. A sound from behind made him turn. Hondoyan's tank was draining. The healing cycle was complete. The young human opened his eyes, blinked twice, and sat up. He looked around the medical bay, saw the Admiral, and tried to stand. His legs were weak, but he forced them to hold him. "Admiral," he said. His voice was rough, but steady. "When is the next training exercise?" Admiral X stared at him. "You nearly died. Your entire squad nearly died. You should rest for weeks." "Probably," Hondoyan agreed. "But the exercise, when is it?" The Admiral did not answer. He could not answer. He simply turned and walked away, his mind full of thoughts he could not organize. By the end of the week, all 5 humans were out of the medical tanks. They were weak, scarred, and still healing, but they were alive. They attended a formal ceremony where Admiral Vex presented them with medals of completion. The entire Academy watched. When the ceremony ended, Observer Plix approached Hondoyan. The small alien looked up at the human with a mixture of respect and fear. "I have finished my report," Plix said. "Would you like to know my conclusion?" Hondoyan nodded. Plex handed him a datapad. On the screen was a single line of text. The final recommendation of his report, it read, "Do not, under any circumstances, go to war with the humans." Doyon read it, then looked at his squad. Park Yuna was stretching her healed ankle. Kim Taiwu was examining some alien technology with curious eyes. Li Guan was talking with the medical staff about human biology. Choi Myra was already planning their next challenge. They were survivors. They were warriors. They were human. Hondoyan handed the datapad back to Plix. "That is good advice," he said. "I hope your people take it." Plix nodded seriously. "I believe they will. After today, I believe everyone will." The humans walked out of the ceremony hall together. They were limping, scarred, and exhausted. But they were smiling. They were laughing. They were already talking about what came next. Behind them, the aliens watched in silence. The most powerful officers in the galaxy, commanders of fleets that could destroy planets, watched 5 young humans walk away and felt something they had never felt before. They felt small. Admiral Vex turned to General Cora. "What do we do now?" General Cora's body pulsed with uncertain light. "We train them. We learn from them. And we pray that they never become our enemies." The Admiral nodded slowly. That was the only option. That was the only sane response to what they had witnessed. In the distance, Park Yuna laughed at something Choi Mira said. The sound echoed through the halls of the academy, bright and alive and completely unafraid. It was the most terrifying sound Admiral Vex had ever heard. He added his own note to Plix's report. Just 2 words that would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. They're unstoppable. Somewhere in the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, 8 billion more humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware that they had just become the most feared species in the known universe. Life went on. The humans kept being human, and the rest of the galaxy learned to be very, very careful.